This podcast episode, we're going to start talking about selecting that tenant. Because selecting a tenant can make or break your rental property. I mean, it's as simple as that. You could have the perfect everything with your property. Great location, everything's updated, beautiful, all's good. But then you select a bad tenant, things go sideways, and next thing you know, you hate rental properties and you want nothing to do with them, and you want to unload that thing as fast as you can. But if you get a good tenant, man, it makes your life easy. Life is good. You love it. I own a property management company. I speak it from experience. When we place a quality tenant, the world's nice and easy. If we put in a headache, oh man, it's a pain in my backside. Fortunately for my clients, they don't get that headache. The headache stops with us. I try to keep the headaches in house and not relay it to clients. But in my own rentals, I deal with it sometimes. I take some chances on my own rentals with tenants that I shouldn't. That I would never do with my property management. With my own personal properties, I do, because I make mistakes even then. I'm managing myself. So in sitting here and starting to talk about screening tenants, I'm not going to say I'm perfect, do it my way, because I make mistakes. I have criteria, I follow them, and sometimes I'll make an exception that I shouldn't, and it goes wrong. Because when it's your property, it's easy to do that. And because you do want to give people chances, and everything looks good on paper except that one thing, and you're like, should that one thing keep them out? Yes, it should. Unless you can properly protect yourself. And there are ways to properly protect yourself. Additional security deposit in the form of last month's rent. If they have no job but they got a ton of money in the bank, then have them put 3 months deposit down, maybe 4. But that also varies significantly by your state laws. Some state laws they cap how much you can require, so you should never accept anyone that doesn't have a job, regardless of what they have in savings. So that's really dependent. I mean, we once took a tenant who on paper you're like, this shouldn't be a good tenant. They had no credit and they had no income. Well, the dude had been living in Costa Rica for like the last few years and had moved home and didn't have a job. He was going to get one because he moved back home, but he had a ton of money in the bank. So he actually paid 6 months rent up front, and we did a 6-month lease. And during that time, he got a job, and then when the 6 months came up, we rescreened him for his income, and then he stayed, and he was a good tenant. But we hedged that risk by taking 6 months of prepaid rent and held it in the trust account, and then every time a month came due, we just transferred it over to the operating account and credited that towards his rent. And so we were able to offset that risk of him not having a job by already having the prepaid rent. But again, your state might eliminate that as an option, so you got to follow your state laws. And so that's what I mean when screening tenants. I'm going to talk about like the steps you should follow, but at the same time, there will be times you deviate from it because it's a risk that you want to take, but you got to make sure that it's a calculated risk and you protect it. But even when you do make exceptions to your rules, you got to have that written out. So it is actually a written policy that if someone doesn't have a job, they have to put down a minimum of 3 months rent up front. And we hold that in reserve. When that guy did that 6 months, he suggested that we didn't even suggest it. He's like, dude, I'll just give you 6 months right now. I'm like, okay, we'll take it. But since then, we have now developed a policy. If someone doesn't have a job, we're taking 3 months minimum credit. 3 months minimum up front. So it's an exception to our policy. We require 3 months rent. Got a little bit of a head cold. I don't know if you can tell by my voice. So some of the rambling might be a little bit more ramblish, and so I apologize. Our rental application requires 3 times the monthly rent, so that way we can look at like, hey, you're financially viable, and so that's our policy: 3 times income, monthly rent. Boom, done. Pretty simple. Now we do have wiggle room in there. We'll go down to 2.5 if you've got a really good credit score. If you've got a kick butt credit score, we'll go down to 2.5. But that's the worst case scenario. But you gotta have like an 800 credit score, 750, no dice, not good enough to get 2.5. Now we might go 2.75. We're not gonna split hairs over that if you have decent credit. But if you have a 600 credit score, you need 3 times. We ain't slouching on that. But then we do have a written policy on how do we make an exception when they don't have income, and that's one of the ways that we do it. And there are other things that we can do as well, depending on the situation, such as co-signers is another one. I'm not a big fan of co-signers. We actually do additional we will do them as a non-occupying tenant instead of a co-signer, a little bit stronger of a situation for us. But again, all goes back to that tenant makes or breaks your rental property. And so as we talk about screening, these are the steps that I follow, my management company follows. This is what you should do as well. But know that even though you have these policies, you still kind of got to work within that framework and understand that there are times you will make an exception, and that and when you do make that exception, you're bringing in additional risk. And when there's additional risk, you need to offset that somehow. That's what investing is all about, risk versus reward. Real estate investing with a rental property, buying stocks, buying gold, whatever you invest in with your money, there's risk associated with that, and how do you offset it? So, calculating risk is nothing new in real estate and property management and rental properties, but you got to offset it properly, and that's the problem people have when screening tenants. They often don't offset that risk. They're like, fine, I'll just let you in, come on in. But you got to offset that risk, because you can lose money when you don't. I remember the time I became good at screening tenants. Back in 2008, money was tight. If you were in real estate then, it sucked. The market tanked. No one would give you money for anything. So I was like, well, dang it, I need tenants in here. And so I had my policy back then. This was before my management company. My criteria was fog the mirror test. Basically, if you can breathe, you fog a mirror. And I was like, cool, you're in. Other people call it the heartbeat test. You got a heartbeat, cool, you're coming in. Yeah, because I needed that rent now. 2008 sucked. And so I did what I had to do. But as I learned, unfortunately, slowly, was I made mistakes on that letting anyone in. And so I was punting that financial problem down the road. I was a Hail Mary. I just, throwing that ball and hoping I could catch it later. And it really hit me when my CPA, one day at tax time, he took my taxes, but no, he asked, it was something along, paraphrasing, because this was many, many years ago. Again, this was before my management company, I think it was. And asked me, do you know how much a bad tenant costs you? I was like, yeah, 1 month's rent. 1 month's rent plus, a little bit to do to remodel and get them in there. You touch a painting stuff. He's like, and he said, wrong. So he pushed over my little schedule with all my rental properties on it, and he looked at that negative, and he says, look at that negative number there at the bottom. I looked at it, I was like, holy shit, that's a big number. And he's like, yeah, because you're not accurately calculating it in your head. And I was like, wait, and it's only 1 month vacant. And he goes, no, it's not. Think about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. They didn't pay the last month, so I had to kick them out. And then I remodeled it for a month, so that was the month it was vacant. And then there was another 2 weeks before someone moved in. So we're looking at a minimum 2.5 months of vacancy, of no rent, even though it was occupied for 1 month. That I was just thinking it was 1 month, because just in my head, I was just being rosy. I had my rose-colored glasses on. And then as far as the maintenance expenses, one, back then I didn't calculate my time as an expense, which was stupid of me. And then two, those $100 here, $200 there at Lowe's and Home Depot and True Value, Ace Hardware, and all the other local hardware stores you go to, adds up. That adds up quick. Did you know that 10 $100 purchases equal $1,000? I know, crazy, simple math, like who the hell knew? But unfortunately, I was just thinking, oh, I spent some money here, spent some money there. Nah, $500-600 couldn't be that much, because I never spent more than $100 or $150 in one go round. So I was losing track mentally of those numbers. I didn't keep a grasp of my numbers. And so really I was losing $5,000 because of bad tenants. Per bad tenant, $5,000. That's a shit ton of money. No wonder I was going broke back then, because I couldn't pay. Like, the tenants were costing me all this money. And they took my CPA to push my little tax paperwork over to me and say, look, dude, this is why you're losing money. And that's why, when talking about how you treat it like a business, you must have a team around you who can tell you the truth and who are not looking just to be like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, whatever, just to get your money. You need people who are going to give you real advice. And so my CPA changed my entire financial future by showing me the hard numbers that I refused to mentally comprehend on my own. And since then, I've become pretty damn good at screening tenants, which then led me to opening a property management company, which has done well for me, which has then led to this podcast. So really, this podcast all leads back to him turning around my taxes and pushing them over to me. And that's when I realized how important that tenant is to the success or failure of your rental property business. Because back in 2008, my real estate business was failing. Completely and utterly failing. Yeah, I can blame it on the market if I wanted to, because the market sucked and it was horrible. But in reality, if you really want to take a hard look at it, I was failing in my real estate business. Yeah, the market didn't help, but the market didn't hurt me either. It just meant I couldn't go acquire more properties. The rental market stayed strong during that time frame. The market didn't cause me to place bad tenants. It didn't cause me to have bad cash flow. I did that because I was selecting low quality tenants by not screening them and by not going through the steps that I now go through. So if you think that they're going by your gut and all that's good and fine and dandy because you haven't been burned yet, you will be. I promise you, you will be, because it's not the way you screen tenants, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to do it the right way. So follow a process, and that's what we're going to talk about. All right, so I talked about, that was a lot of rambling and like me being honest on how I know you should select a good tenant. You're focused on trying to select that quality tenant. You're never going to be perfect. You are going to miss from time to time. You might let a bad tenant in. They might pass the screening. And life events happen. People get fired from jobs, unfortunately. Unfortunately, people get divorced. Unfortunately, people die. Like, bad shit happens in life. And so your great tenant might turn bad. Unfortunately, that does happen. But you improve your odds of success when you do screening, and you do screening right. Drinking some coffee. I am under the weather. You could probably tell by my voice, sounds a little froggy-ish, maybe. So I'm trying to drink some coffee to stay awake during this. Yes, I might fall asleep while talking and rambling. It's kind of how I roll. So that tenant makes or breaks you. All right, so we're going to start talking a little bit about my process. It's a 7-step process. If you this is going to probably be a 2 or 3 episode, because podcasts, even with these full 30-minute episodes, I mean, I could literally talk 8 hours on selecting a tenant. And then we're not going to, we'll scratch the surface, but we're not going to get the whole way through it. And one of the 2 reasons why, there's just a ton of stuff when it comes to screening a tenant and selecting a tenant. And 2, things change over time. I'm still learning and improving our tenant selection process because I'm constantly looking for feedback in what I do in those processes. So I wrote this ebook. It's called 7 Steps to Selecting a Quality Tenant. Learn how to successfully screen prospective tenants. I'm holding it in my hand. It's a 24-page PDF. I've inflated it to 24 because I count the cover page and the title page and all that kind of good stuff to make it to 24 pages. Yeah, I know. 24 sounds better than 22. So it's 24 pages. You can go get it. Which is really what we're going to go through. And I'm going to talk and ramble through it. I actually wrote this back in 2016. So I've been using the same basic formula for 5 years now, 4 years. Yeah, so I was using this formula before I wrote the book. So, I started my management company, first client in 2013. Yeah, so at least since 2013, I've been using this stuff. And like I said, I wrote that ebook. If you want the whole ebook, you can head on over to successfulrental.com, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get the ebook. It's the first thing everyone gets when they sign up for my newsletter. So if you want the whole thing, and if you want to go back so you have something to reference, go over there, sign up for it, successfulrental.com, and sign up for my newsletter. All right, well, let's dive into this. We are 15 minutes into this episode. We're probably only going to go 20, 25 minutes because my voice hurts. And you probably don't want to listen to me for 40, 45 minutes like the last two. So, when you open up the ebook, gets into my disclaimer. I gave you the disclaimer in the very first episode, but I'm going to throw it out there again. This is not legal advice. You need an attorney on your staff to help you. A good real estate attorney who knows landlord-tenant law, make sure they know landlord-tenant law is going to go a long way, because you need to make sure your tenant selection criteria follows federal, state, and local laws. I don't know what the local laws in your area. I only live in one state. I don't live in the other 49, so I don't know what your state laws are in your state. So you need to have it. There's a federal policy called the Fair Housing Act. If you own rental properties, I really hope you know it. And I'm going to read you the non-discrimination verbatim. The federal fair housing law prohibits discrimination against persons on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, or handicap/disability. That is the fair housing statement. In my opinion, it doesn't go far enough. Some states have added to that. California's added a whole bunch. I don't even want to pretend what they are, but like sexual orientation, some states have added as a protected class, as it should be. If you discriminate for any reason whatsoever, fuck off. I don't want to deal with you. Just bye-bye. Bye-bye. Don't care. There is no reason to discriminate. Color of someone's skin, their familial status, their sexual orientation, their sexual identification. I don't give a damn. Doesn't matter. That's not going to impact their ability to pay rent. When you screen a tenant, there's two questions that you should ask. Well, there's two questions you should answer. Ask and answer to yourself. Will the tenant pay rent on time? And will they take care of the property? That's it. Those are the two questions you need to ask yourself and answer. Nothing else matters. I don't give a damn if they have kids. Great, they have kids, great. They don't have kids, great. I don't care. I don't care about their heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual. Doesn't matter to me. And neither should it to you, because it's none of your fucking business. And it pisses me off when people discriminate. So if you're one of those people who love to discriminate, just turn off my podcast and go away, because I never want to do business with you in any way, shape, or form, because it pisses me off. I don't know if you can tell, but this angers me. I have literally had clients ask me to discriminate and say, well, let me rephrase that. Potential clients say, hey, I know you're not supposed to, but could you not let X into my property? And I just look at them and say, that's illegal. We're not going to do business. I mean, well, it's not that cut and dry. I'll say, we're not doing business. And depending on the individual and how it's going, I will educate them and tell them that is illegal. Or if the person just seems like a scumbag, I just say, nope, illegal, we're out. We don't break laws, and I leave. So it just really depends. So do not discriminate. Like I cannot emphasize that enough. Like if you want to discriminate, peace out. Check you later. Sorry, Charlie. No, I don't want to do with you. All right. And this is my rant. I mean, it goes back to be a good person before good business. Good person will lead to good business. And if you don't want to be a good person, then shove off. But what about pets? What about pets? You're discriminating against pets. Well, one, I'm pro pet. I love pets. But pets are animals. That's not a protected class. Pets, that's not discrimination. But what about service animals? What about emotional support animals? That would be discrimination. So you have to, those aren't pets. Those are service animals or emotional support animals. That's a whole other ballgame. Those aren't pets. That would be discrimination if you don't let in that service animal. But someone's pet, you don't have to let the pet in. But, little quick caveat, you should allow pets because the two-legged animals, aka human beings, do more damage than a pet ever will. But anyhow, it is what it is. But yeah, so that's my rant on discrimination. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Simple. I mean, case closed. Everyone who agrees with me, raise your hand. Since I am the only one in the room and I am raising my hand, I'm going to assume we have 100% agreement on this. So I'll move on. So let's find that perfect tenant unicorn. I mean, I'm talking the perfect tenant. The tenant who takes care of the house, does all the maintenance. They pay rent before the due date. And when they move out, they stay for 5 years. And when they move out, they give it back to you in the exact same condition they moved in. They did all their own touch-up painting. They had a little small stain in the carpet, so they replaced the carpet. Oh my God, that is the tenant I want. Just kidding. That doesn't exist, nor should you strive for it. There's something called normal wear and tear that property management companies know, but the small landlords, a lot of them that I speak with, don't quite get. Because they want that house back in perfect condition, and they want all the walls repainted, and they want the carpets replaced. That just doesn't exist. Like, most state laws permit normal wear and tear. And so what's normal wear and tear mean? It means when you live in a house, you're allowed to live in the house. Like, live is a verb. To live your life. To hang pictures on the wall like this one behind me. To have a wear pattern develop in a carpet from walking on it. Because that's what happens with carpets. They get wear patterns, especially in hallways. Can't bill a tenant for that. Now, if you have a wall that, well, we're not going to get into normal wear and tear. So that's a discussion for another day. But, so there is no perfect tenant unicorn. Don't look for people that are going to be that perfect ideal person. You want someone who qualifies to rent the place based on your criteria. And so that's what you want. You want someone's going to live in your house, report maintenance. You don't want tenant doing maintenance. I know some people who require tenants to do maintenance below a certain thing, certain cost. You know what happens when you do that? The maintenance doesn't get done. And so that little problem develops into a large problem. And that large problem, if it goes unchecked, turns into a disaster. And do you know who pays for that? You do. You're the property owner. It becomes your headache. Okay, but then you think, oh, I'll just bill it to the tenant and their security deposit. But you got $5,000 water damage because you told the tenant to deal with the leaky toilet and they never dealt with it because they didn't want to pay the plumber to come out and reseat the toilet. So now you got water damage all underneath the floor. And you got to rip out the bathroom, and you're like, that's okay. I'll just bill the tenant for him and send him small claims. Blah blah blah. Well, guess what? Magistrate judge probably won't agree with you. Okay, let's say the magistrate judge agrees with you, and then you're okay, cool. You got a $5,000 judgment against the tenant, your previous tenant. Do you know how hard it is to collect debt? Hard. Good luck collecting it. Let's say you can collect it. So great, you billed it all to them. Great, wonderful. But now your property sat vacant the entire time you were getting that work done, and then you had to get someone in there. You ain't recouping that lost rent. And then your insurance company isn't going to pay you because it was a problem you ignored. And so when you start looking for tenants who are going to take care of maintenance, and that's the other thing, bad quality tenants. And when I'm talking about good quality, bad quality, I'm not talking about them as a human being. I'm talking about them against a application criteria. Will they pay rent on time and will they take care of the property? That makes someone a good or bad quality tenant. I'm not talking about them as a person, so let's get that out of the way. bad quality tenants will tell you the things you want to hear. So if you're looking for someone who's going to take care of the property, and they're going to tell you, yeah, we're going to paint before we leave, don't worry about that. We'll take care of all the small maintenance that pops up, even the stuff that, you know, 'cause they're not saying this, but you're thinking, even the stuff I'm legally required to take care of, they're going to do it for me. Awesome. I want these tenants. Bad quality tenants know that those are the key words and phrases that get them approved. And so when you start looking for that what you think, quote unquote, is the perfect tenant unicorn, odds are you're attracting the exact wrong kind of tenant. It's not what you want. Again, going back to just those two questions. Will they take care of the property, and will they pay rent on time? So only two things that matter. That's it. Nothing else. And take care of the property means report maintenance on time and also give the property back to you in the condition you gave it to them minus normal wear and tear. And so don't look for someone who tells you they're going to take care of all the little maintenance. I don't want tenants doing the little maintenance, because if they do it wrong, you're the one that pays for it. If they do it wrong, it's coming out of your pocket. They might not do it because they don't want to pay for it. And so that's coming out of your pocket when it's a bigger problem down the road. So that's the perfect tenant unicorn. You know, I view tenants more of a partner in the rental, partner in theory, not in reality, obviously. They're the tenant, the resident. They're not an actual partner. But I view them as kind of a partner. So here's some things that I wrote down that make it, let me see here. Like, they're the one that gives you money to pay for your mortgage. So that's a plus. That's an important part of it. They're the ones that identify maintenance problems before they become major repairs and report them to you. So that's awesome. That's good. They're the ones that are cutting the grass and taking care of it and doing the basic maintenance. They should replace the HVAC filter, which is taking care of your property. They should replace the smoke detectors. They should replace the light bulbs. You know, they do those little handyman things, just the bare minimum basic maintenance. To reports it back to you. You got gutters and they're clogged. The tenant tells you so you can come out and take care of the gutters. Don't tell the tenant to take care of it because they fall off that ladder. That's a liability issue on you. But they're the ones that tell you these little things. They watch over your property. And they're the ones that are help preserving your long-term investment. And they're helping create wealth for you. And so I've a very high regard for tenants because of all the stuff they do for me. They take care of my properties. They're the ones that report problems to me so we can get them taken care of. They're the ones that take care of the yards. They're the one building the wealth for my family and I. They're the one paying off my mortgages. Like, so tenants are so important to this process. And that's what a quality tenant will give you. All right, we're going to wrap this up because my throat's starting to hurt. But the 7 steps are: 1, they meet your rental criteria. Wait, hold on. We're going to back that up. I'm trying to read off some of from my book. So here's what I've defined as a quality tenant that I wrote back in 2016, and I still maintain this and haven't changed it. 1, they meet your rental application criteria. 2, they pay rent on time. They're usually going to pay within the grace period. Most states allow for a grace period, and so they're going to pay within that grace period. They're going to maintain a decent lawn. They're going to do the basic maintenance that your state requires, which most states do. And in my state, they're keeping the sewer pipes open. They're changing light bulbs. They're doing smoke detector batteries. They're doing replacing the filters. Actually, I've started replacing the filters for tenants because a lot of them don't, so I want to make sure it's taken care of. 5, they report maintenance when it's identified. They keep a clean house to help prevent insects and rodents from being attracted and coming into the house, and they fulfill the lease terms. To me, that is a quality tenant and someone I would love to have live in my home. You notice in my criteria, if you're watching the video, you can see it, but when you go get the report, I'm in my little ebook here, in my quality tenant list, color, sexual orientation, familial status, national origin, all those protected classes, and then the stuff that should be in there that's not protected but should be. None of them are here because none of that matters. Because all the protected classes stuff doesn't equal a good tenant or a bad tenant. None of that impacts whether or not they're going to be a good or bad tenant. So that's what my quality tenant is. So, what we're going to start talking about in the next episode, we're actually going to start getting into the steps. So my 7 steps to selecting a quality tenant is 1, pre-screen your prospective tenant. That is a big item, pre-screening. 2, physically show your property. Yes, I know technology is wonderful and allows you to do some things like remote showings and whatnot. I'm not a fan of it right now. Yeah, it takes a little bit more time, but it does help with the screening process. 3, you have to have a rental application. 4, charge an application fee. 5, actually run your credit and background checks. 6, stick to your tenant selection criteria that you have written out. And 7, require a full month's security deposit. So all those things, I think actually all those things we've already talked about in my 1-minute tip series, but I just kind of like glanced over them quick and easy. But next episode, next week, we're actually really going to dive into what those steps are and how to implement them. And so, like I said, if you want, go ahead and go over to successfulrental.com so that way you can download the ebook. And that way you have it if you don't want to wait until those episodes are available, or if you do want to wait and you just want it as a paper reference. I know I spent a lot of time talking about why tenants are important, the quality, like what is a quality tenant versus a not quality tenant, and don't discriminate, because again, discrimination pisses me off. I'm a Jewish dude and I've faced discrimination, and I don't ever want to be a person who supports discrimination. And so anti-discrimination, I know I ranted on it and I rant on it all the time because there's a lot of it out there. And when I speak with, and it's there, even in today's age, just turn on the damn news and you see it. But like, I have spoken with prospective clients who have said, I don't want X person in my life, so I know they're out there. Please don't discriminate. Please, I'm begging you, don't do it. But yeah, that's it. Tenants are important. Quality or a bad quality tenant will make or break your financial situation on your rental property for that year, 2 years, possibly 3 years, or might even make you want to sell your property. That's how important tenants are. So, talk with you on the next episode. If you have any questions in the meantime, sign up for my newsletter and respond to that email and I'll get back to you.